Hi Kai, how you doing? Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on. And your company has been the talk of the week for a very good reason, because you're doing something that nobody has really dared to take on to a degree. There have been initiatives, but no full head-on approaches yet. So we're going to talk about that in a second. We're going to string the audience along for just a little longer, because first of all, I want to know how you're doing and how you're handling COVID. You're in Peru. I understand this is a very strict time out there. Quarantine has been really handled very strictly, and I just want to see how you're doing and how is the company handling the whole situation.
Yeah, look, I mean, we're in week 7 of an 8-week lockdown. I don't know what's going to happen at the end of 8 weeks, whether they're going to extend it. Peru's been hit pretty hard, and I think any country with a high level of poverty like Peru is going to find it difficult. Social distancing is easy to be understood by people like us who are educated, who understand the pluses and minuses of not doing it. But when you're uneducated, and when you don't, and when you're impoverished, and you need to be out there doing something, selling something, generating cash, it's very, very difficult. So when you look at Lima, yeah, you can lock down Lima, but when you look at the provinces and when you look at the outskirts of Lima, very, very difficult. So it's really sad from that perspective. I think the government's done a great job, but I think we're going to be impacted pretty significantly. What are the numbers? I don't believe any numbers that any government's putting out. So, it is going to be what it is, and we just got to hope that the death toll is not as great over the time. I mean, we're not going to see the end of this until there's a free, a broadly distributed vaccine, as we all know. So
yeah, it's going to be lingering for quite a while. Unfortunately, the question is, like, at first it was about flattening the curve, right? And we'll see. But as you mentioned, in third world countries, it is difficult to sort of even flatten the curve, because you don't have the medical equipment to even handle the base
we
load.
haven't got to the peak yet. We haven't got to the peak. That's the problem here. They're still showing a rise, and it's tough. It's really sad, and it's tough, and people need to recognise that not every country is equal.
No, that's true. That's true. Because here in BC, we're quite fortunate that we only had 2,000, a little over 2,000 cases. I haven't looked at the numbers today; it might be 2,100 now. But the death rate is fairly low. There's only, like, as of yesterday, there were 37 people in ICU. I think we've gotten lucky out here, because we have social distance and people were smart enough to stay in, and we have the social system to support us here, right? And government is handing out money for those in need and trying to support where they can, from what I understand, like, fortunately. So, but enough of that. Like, and I have to admit, I'm almost getting sick of it, because we've been talking about it for 6 weeks now. We had like 22 interviews with companies. So, but it's really important to see how it is affecting companies, like your work, your projects, the work you're doing. That was one of the
It's
ideas.
interesting. Can I just make a mention of that? We're in from a business perspective, we're sort of in a perfect spot, because what we've done is we've recently filed our EIA. As most people would know, an EIA review is really a desktop process. It's not a field process. And so we're in a great spot, because over the next 10 to 12 months or so, things are going to be happening within the various authorities in Chile. We're not talking about Peru now, we're talking about Chile, where COVID's been handled a little bit different, better, because the demographics are different.
No.
But anyway, we're sort of in a good spot, and construction for our project is slated for the end of next year, which once again should be post-COVID, or at a better time after this COVID scenario sort of dies down a bit. So.
Yeah, no, and yeah, as you said, you just put in the environmental impact assessment, and like, it seems like the governments are working in Chile. So are you getting some feedback already, or like how is that looking?
Well, really good feedback, because we've actually lobbied pretty hard prior to filing the EIA. And when I say lobby, we've spoken, and I have personally spoken to the Minister of Mines. I've spoken to the head of the group that's going to be assessing our EIA. Next week, I'm talking to the Sub-Secretary of the Environment. And once again, the message is that because of COVID and because of the fact that we're operating in the Atacama region near Copiapó, Copiapó has, before COVID, a high level of unemployment. It's a mining town. We will positively impact Copiapó and the region of the Atacama region by generating over 1,000 jobs during construction and over 500 jobs during production. So that's the lobby that we're doing, and it's sinking in. I mean, typically when you file an EIA in Chile, it takes about a month for them to do an initial review and say, you know what, we're accepting this for filing, right?
Yep.
Because they go through and they try and... We had that done in 1 week. They came back to us in 1 week. So we think the message is getting out there about how important our project is. And the other thing that people should know is that we've got the only full new mine EIA in process in the Atacama region, which means we've got no competition.
Okay, so yeah, they were pretty much waiting for you to hand the documents in. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's all the positive things I can say about what we've done so far and where we are with the EIA.
Cool. No, that's fantastic. And I think that's all we can talk about right now. Because the point of SF Live, the original idea was when we started it about, 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, everything is a blur now, was really to give investors an update on companies during this time of crisis and tell them they're actually working. You know, they're not, as you can see, they're not sitting on a beach sipping Mai Tais, right? So that's the
well, you know, and I can tell you for the last 3 weeks, last week we did the World Gold Forum, as you probably know. I mean, we had more than 20 meetings, virtual meetings. It was great.
Fantastic.
I've been on the phone to a lot of people over the last 2 to 3 weeks. It's been incredible. I've been working harder than I ever worked when I was in the pre-COVID times. So quite interesting.
No, it's actually true. Like I've noticed that myself. The first 2-3 weeks where people are struggling, getting their feet on the ground and trying to figure out what they're doing. And now everybody's sort of set up. They got their home offices set up and kids are taken care of and kids know their routine now. They're actually working. It is really busy. And I think it's really good to see. And what I like seeing as well, like the investors are accepting formats like the World Gold Forum as a forum to communicate. It is working quite well. It's a band-aid for now. I don't think that the virtual will ever replace the physical meetings. It's a good follow-up, but that makes me quite happy actually that it's working. And the good thing is, and I've said that before, the silver lining is we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, everybody.
So it's not just a singled out group. Okay, let's come to the main topic of conversation. Okay, so you put that out the other day. I think it was 2 days ago, or yesterday, and you engaged a group to talk or to publish a report about the short position in your company. There's been a massive issue with that, and we should definitely address that. And maybe before I say anything that's probably off, because I'm not too familiar with short selling. I don't do it. Like, it's not something I engage in. Maybe you can enlighten us, like what it actually means and how it's impacted Rio2.
Okay, maybe I'm a mining engineer, so I'm not a stock trader. So I'm like you. I'm learning it very fast about this business. But let me sort of elaborate how this happened. During the last 12 to 18 months, and I think you've been one of these people, I've been having inbounds from a lot of people going, what's happening with your stock? Who's selling the stock? Why is the stock not moving? Why are you so, undervalued? Why are you just hanging in there? Blah, 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 blah. No. And I've got no idea. And when people ask me who's been selling the stock, I go, I don't know, because we have about 180 million shares on issue. About 100 of those are in strong hands. And I'm talking about insiders, Eric Sprott, a few others. No. And so I just didn't know. And then a shareholder of ours, not Eric Sprott, but a very a professional, sophisticated shareholder came to me and said, I think you're a victim of naked shorting. And that's why you're having this scenario with your shares. And I said, well, shit, what's that? And so he said, look, I'll introduce you to a couple of guys who can do some research for you. Not going to cost you a lot of money. And and let's see if they find it. You know, what I think is happening. And anyway, we did. We got a company called Share Intel to do some research, and lo and behold, they came up with the fact that we had this huge naked short. And shorting, from what I understand, and you know, please forgive me, anybody who's out there that knows more than me, but you know, typically you can borrow shares, and you can sell those shares when you borrow them from a broker or you know, to do it, and then within 2 days you have to give those shares back. Yeah. That is what a typical short is.
That's my understanding from what I understand so far. Yeah,
exactly. Now, naked shorting is where you actually don't borrow, but you make a sale, right? And you have what they call best intentions to find those shares.
Best intentions, right? Yeah, I love it.
Now, and it's a funny scenario, and so in our situation, we've had a lot of sales of shares that don't exist, that never been borrowed, and we have an imbalance of shares. That's what we're trying to tell everybody. We've discovered a huge imbalance, and I'm talking about tens of millions of shares in our stock. Yeah. Now, when a CEO like me is made aware of that, and my board as well, we have to do something about it. But not only do something about it whereby we just, you know, make out it's not happening, we're telling people, and we're going to lobby people, because one thing you're going to learn about me is I'm not scared to speak up.
Yeah. So anybody who follows you on Twitter knows that too. So
yeah, and I've been in business 40 years, and I'm old enough to take the punches. So we've done that. Now, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but we will go through a methodical process of dealing with this in the background, and from time to time reporting to shareholders about how we're progressing with it. Okay. But at the end of the day, what's happening is illegal, yeah. Right? And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the authorities to recognize that, and to try and get the authorities to stamp it out. Now, I can tell you yesterday that I had a telephone conference call with Eric Sprott, who's our largest shareholder.
Yeah, because he's also part of the Save Canadian Mining initiative.
Exactly. And that's something you should probably look to do, is maybe talk to Terry Lynch, who's the head of Save Canadian Mining. But we had that conversation yesterday. Eric nearly fell off his chair when he found out about the imbalance that I just,
well, it's 50 million shares, isn't it? So it's over, like,
it's a big number. And one of the things we're doing is we've identified the number, and we're monitoring how that number is going. Every week we're getting new reports done by these investigators to tell us how that's going. Because at the end of the day, what our job is to diminish that imbalance to zero. Yeah. Right? That's my job as CEO and my shareholders, because this is affecting everybody. So, so the good thing is we're not a two-bit junior company that has moose pasture in some country around the world. We're actually doing something, so we've got a real asset. Yeah. The second thing is we're not needing money tomorrow because we're fully funded to next year. So we've got time to reveal this, to talk about it. And I think what you'll see, hopefully, if we do everything right, that our stock will clean up. Okay. Yeah. And you know, I see these volumes that have happened over the last weeks and months, and just recently, I just don't know where they're coming from. Yeah. And there's high frequency traders and entities like that getting involved in dealing with our stock, which is just not normal. I mean, we're just Now this is pervasive in the US. It's pervasive. It's starting to, and we're one of the first companies in Canada to actually identify this and put it out there.
I actually had a call with Terry almost 2 months ago. I think it was pre-PDAC actually. And my problem is, like, as part of Orning, because we track financings and financing activity, and the conversation was about joining that alliance. And I said, Terry's like, this is interesting, but I need a use case. I need a case to see it, like to understand it better. It's like I'm not exactly like it's coming together, right? And I have to admit, I'm a shareholder of Rio2, so it's like I'm biased, obviously, and I want this stock to do well. But regardless, like I needed a case to understand, like, okay, what is Safe Canadian Mining actually doing? What's the whole point of this? Without having a best practice or like an example, like a business case, actually, right? So
whenever Safe Canadian Mining talk further about their lobby that they're trying to do with guys like Eric Sprott, Sean Roosen, and Rob McEwen, they will mention us. Yeah. They will mention us. Now, I know a question's been made. So how does any company identify this? Well, you know, I'm not going to talk about the various groups that are, or the couple of gentlemen that are helping us, but I'm on Twitter. People can contact me there privately, and I'm happy to direct them in the right direction. And it doesn't cost much to have an analysis. If you think this is happening as a CEO, if you think this is happening, it will cost you about $25,000 to find out. Okay. Right. Yeah. And when you do find out, and if you do see the imbalances that we're seeing, you're going to go, that's the best 25 grand I've ever spent.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, let's deconstruct it just a little bit, because as you said, it's in the tens of millions. You got 180 million shares outstanding. You got strong institutional support. You got Eric Sprott as a large shareholder in there. Like, where are the shares coming from? Do they even exist? It's crazy.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So that's the phenomena. It's you know, and I'm not a share trader, so I'm not experienced with this. I've had some people come to me over the last few days say, no, but this is normal, Alex. You know, I don't know what you're talking about. This is typical, you know, and it's not typical, because when you have these large share imbalances, and then people go, well, but how does that happen? I don't know how it happens, but I'm telling you it happens. And so we're all about exposing this, doing our little bit, because we're a little company, but we're going to do our little bit to try and make people aware of this and try and eliminate it. The only way it's going to ever get eliminated is when the authorities like, you know, IROC, the CSA, also the OSC, and we have sent that press release to the OSC and said,
please take a look.
FYI, FYI, right? So anyway, look, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. If you've got specific questions,
yeah,
please
actually,
come
I switched
back.
the screen already over to Twitter, so we got a couple of questions on Twitter. A lot of them revolving around the short selling issue. It's a big deal. You're the first one to go out publicly with this. You're publishing reports on that, and so people do have questions, and I have a lot too. And I'm really curious how they will be answered over time. They're not easily answered. Some of them.
We've also got a gold project in Chile that we're building next year. But anyway, we'll talk about that.
Well, it's
later.
like usually the first thing's like, oh, why do people sell your company short? Because they don't believe in the story, but actually it's not the case here, right? So
no.
So like one of the questions that came in from Wok, and they're all here, it's on the screen here, is are there any examples of other companies succeeding or having success in removing naked short sellers operating on their stock? Is there precedent?
Once again, this is new, where somebody like us have got active on this case in Canada, but there have been several companies. And this doesn't just happen to resource companies. It happens to broad spectrum of companies, you know, biotech, technology, lots of things. So this is not new. And the guys that are helping me have done it predominantly in the US. So we're one of the first companies to do it in Canada. So can I say it's widespread and people are doing it things? No. But I hope that I'm a catalyst for CEOs, and the CEO's got to be the catalyst, right?
Well, somebody, yeah.
The CEO, you know, I mean, it's not something a shareholder can do. It's something that the CEO recognizes as a problem, does his investigation, and tries to do what I'm doing, which is trying to expose it, lobby to get this thing fixed.
Yeah, no, like half of your job is capital markets, so that is a big portion of it.
Yeah.
So.
It's my responsibility.
Right. Yeah. So another question came in from Siba Breed, and he asks, and we answered that to a degree, does Alex know if there's a way to recognize companies with significant naked short selling positions? Besides hiring that firm, obviously, but is there a way to see maybe publicly somewhere?
Without hiring a firm. This firm has the capability of doing the research that's necessary to do it. I couldn't do it, right? You couldn't do it. So you will have to engage an expert, and once again, I can certainly direct concerned CEOs to those experts to do the review.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense. And you said, like, just moving forward a little bit as well, like there will be weekly reports coming out of Rio, monthly reports coming out from Rio on that subject, like the report I think you put out yesterday. Will that be a monthly thing?
No. I mean, look, I've got to run a business, which is we're a mine development company. This is happening in the background. When we have something more substantive to talk about, we will tell the market. All that we're saying to people, and this was the big reveal, I think, when I did an interview recently. And I'm just putting it out there because, once again, I've had so many inbounds. Why is this happening? Where's the volume coming from? Why is your shares not going anywhere? And I've just put it out there, and I'm saying, we've got a problem, right? And I'm being as transparent as I can as a CEO of a company to put it out there rather than hiding it and saying, oh, there's no problem here. I don't know what's going on. We're fine. No, I'm not. And that's not me. Once again, people will learn that I speak up.
No, and that's a good thing. Let's end the topic here. Let's move on. Like, what's coming up for Rio now? What are the next steps? You made that acquisition recently where you bought it.
Yes.
And we should talk about that too. Like, what are the impacts and stuff?
So yeah, two milestones hit just recently. We filed the EIA, which was announced a couple of weeks ago. We also bought some adjoining infrastructure to our project, only 20 kilometres away. The reason for that was predominantly because of camp that exists there that we've been utilising on a rental basis up until now. Power line connection, so grid connection. We're going to start our project on generators, but we're eventually going to connect to the grid, and this will give us the easy way of doing that. And thirdly, a small water bore that accounts for 20% of the water that we need to start up the project. So
that's important.
There's 20%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's 20% less water. So people have asked me, okay, so you spent $1.5 million buying this infrastructure. What is it going to translate to? And all I can say right now, without throwing a number at a I'm throwing a number at a dartboard, is that it's going to save us tens of millions of dollars in OPEX over the life of the project. So it's a very positive acquisition. So we did all that. So now we're in the process of the EIA, which is very quiet. However, over the next couple of months, we'll be announcing several things. Additions to our team. We're putting on a project manager who will be in charge of the construction of the project, and we'll be announcing that. We've made a couple of key appointments in Chile, which we'll be announcing. We've also started the financing process, and not in the near future, but maybe mid-year, we might be able to make some more comments about that, about where we are with financing. I feel very confident we're not going to have a problem to finance this project, remembering we're only looking at about $120 million or thereabouts.
So start early with the discussions anyway. So
yeah, and what I want to do is lever this project up as much as possible, because of interest rates being so low and because the gold price being so high, and I don't want to raise a lot of equity. So that's all coming. What else are we doing? We're working on other water options. So hopefully we might be able to say something positive about that during this year. Yeah, I mean, there are things that we're going to be doing during the course of the year that will keep people up to date with what's going on the ground.
No, fantastic, because I think it's progressing nicely. It's baby steps, right? And Rome wasn't built in a day. So I like how the company's progressing. As I said, I'm a shareholder, and so far you de-risked the asset as quickly as possible, or as stringently as possible, right? So water obviously was the biggest issue. You took care of that. I wasn't actually aware of the 20% water bore that you bought with the asset recently. That's huge on the trucking costs, and that reduces OPEX on a per ton basis tremendously. So that's fantastic. Yeah. Alex, I think we're at the end of our time here. Any couple last words? Anything we should be looking out for? That we need to know? I think you just summarized it perfectly in your last in the last minute, actually. So.
No, and we've got a new presentation on our website. There's a page in that presentation, page 17, where we do some comparatives of our project to existing mines, 2 mines, Marigold and Mesquite. And I think people should look at that because we have the largest undeveloped gold heap leach project in the Americas. Nobody else has got one.
Yeah.
Neither Silver Standard, Equinox, or anybody who's doing business in the Americas. So I think people need to understand that. They need to look at our progress. We are targeting construction later next year. That'll come very quickly, and before long we'll be making great strides with this project.
Yeah, fantastic, Alex. Thanks so much. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for your time. Thank you, and stay safe. And thanks for all the questions from people. And we'll beaver away on this short issue, and but at the same time we'll advance our project.
Fantastic. Everybody else, you heard it. Alex, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for your questions. It is an interactive format. It's about us asking questions that you want answered. So thanks again. Make sure you follow us here on Twitter and on YouTube. Thank you so much.